New tariffs in the USA have now been passed. Donald Trump confirmed this yesterday at the press conference. Additionally, there are highly explosive statements here because he says the BRICS nations are dead, and anyone who challenges the USA will face massive problems. We have seen such threats in the past, but now the whole situation is intensifying. Donald Trump is upping the ante, saying there will be up to 100% tariffs. They must use the US dollar. Anyone who defies this must expect massive punishments. This press conference was really on fire. Donald Trump also confirmed once again that he wants to lower interest rates. He is now talking about it almost every day. Lower the interest rates. Lower the interest rates. On the other hand, all the threats against other countries. So it is really currently escalating. At the same time, we see that inflation rates are rising. This means Donald Trump wants to do exactly the opposite of what the Federal Reserve, the central bank in the USA, intends to do. And then we actually have Robert Kennedy Jr., who is now officially confirmed as the Secretary of Health in the USA. And this is particularly astonishing because Robert Kennedy Jr. has very, very large Bitcoin holdings. The majority of his liquid portfolio is in Bitcoin. And he has, even back then at the Nashville Bitcoin Conference, he demanded that the USA should buy 4 million Bitcoin. So we have here the next absolute Bitcoin bull, who is now officially confirmed in the Donald Trump team. There are also rumors that X is now introducing crypto payments. We are also looking into this, although it must be said up front that it is not yet confirmed and currently only rumors. But the Donald Trump conference really made headlines here, which he held on the occasion of the tariffs, where he then announced very prominently, yes, now we have mutual tariffs. It is officially stated here that Donald Trump announces counter tariffs for countries that are currently imposing fees on the USA. I have decided, for reasons of fairness, that I will impose a corresponding tariff. We will charge you no more and no less, says Donald Trump here. In other words, you charge us a tax or a tariff and we charge you exactly the same tax or tariff. Quite simply, this means that if, for example, Germany imposes a tariff on the USA, let's say 20%, then the USA will also impose a tariff on Germany. This means the tariff or duty depends here on how severely the country taxes or imposes a tariff on the USA. And then the USA will impose counter tariffs. This means the USA will no longer allow itself to be played with, but rather the USA is now using its geostrategic position. A very, very good position to put pressure on other countries and, let's say, to increase its revenues through tariffs. On the other hand, Donald Trump has repeatedly talked about possibly lowering income taxes because they can be cross-subsidized here with the tariffs. He says America first. We must first ensure that our people are doing well. And if we are doing well, then maybe we can look after others as a second priority. But first, we need to look after ourselves. Donald Trump also mentioned at the press conference that this could lead to prices rising in the short term. But in the long term, it is good for the USA, and we already have inflation problems. This means that the tariffs will further fuel the inflation problems, at least in the short term. This implies the likelihood of interest rate cuts. At least here, in Q1, Q2, they are now dropping again, because Donald Trump has introduced these tariffs. It should also be noted that immediately after the tariffs, there wasn't a massive sell-off or anything like that. We've seen that happen more often in the past. I mentioned it just yesterday. In the video here, just a few hours until the potential Bitcoin crash. The Bitcoin crash did definitely not happen after these announcements from Donald Trump, because it was probably very, very well announced this time. But I also mentioned that it could very well be that this time the impact won't be too big, simply because everything was announced in advance. And with the first two announcements about tariffs, Donald Trump didn't announce it in advance, but rather said out of the blue, yeah, come on, we're just going to impose drastic tariffs on other countries. What was also interesting in this speech was that Donald Trump said, interest rates have to go down. Or he even says it differently, interest rates are going to be going down. So he says it with a confidence that is very, very high, that the interest rates are going down. And I'll say it again, this is a good sign for Bitcoin if the interest rates go down. But on the other hand, I find it very, very hard to imagine at the moment because inflation is just way too out of control instead of being able to bring the interest rates down. I don't think Jerome Powell will just let himself be played with and slash the rates. And now there was the big moment in the press conference where Donald Trump issued a warning against the BRICS nations. Also against all other nations that do not conduct their trade or make their deals in US dollars. This is absolutely fascinating because it's explosive. We are currently in a currency war. Donald Trump is making a very clear threat here. Folks, without the US dollar, it won't work. But check it out for yourselves.
But Brics was put there for a bad purpose. And most of those people they don't even want to talk about it now. They're afraid to talk about it because I told them if they want to play games with the dollar, then they're going to be hit with a 100% tariff the day they mention that they want to do it. And they will come back and say, we beg you not to do this. Brics is dead since I mentioned that. Brics died the minute I mentioned that. And I remember when Obama and Biden in particular, I guess he said that, they have us over a barrel. They don't have us over a barrel. We have them over a barrel.
Donald Trump has really shown that when he wants to implement something, when he sees some problems here, he doesn't hesitate, but he really goes all out. He follows through immediately. And then things are laid out clearly here, and some nations are definitely afraid of that. But I already mentioned in the last video, Luke Croman is also an analyst who says, hey, this could become a big problem if the USA goes all out like this, because it won't lead to other nations being restricted or intimidated, but rather that they will want to try even more alternatives here. And there is still the possibility that, for example, one could rely on Bitcoin, because I'm just not sure if Donald Trump only means that if you use your own currencies for international trade, for instance, whether that's the mistake here, whether that would lead to the 100% tariffs, or if it could actually be that Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies would lead to these tariffs. Because one could also argue, okay, if you use Bitcoin, it's a neutral, decentralized currency. Maybe. Donald Trump doesn't see that as an attack. That means it would be very interesting to find out whether Donald Trump only sees it as an attack if you use your own currency here to engage in national trade, like the Chinese currency or, for that matter, the Russian currency, or if he also sees it as an attack when you actually use Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies for international trade. So, in the end, it would be a kind of indirect Bitcoin ban that Donald Trump is declaring for other nations. Feel free to write in the comments how you see it. He also says that if any nation dares to do this, they will end up worshipping the USA again. Please, let me trade in US dollars again, because I understand the USA has a significant power here, they can exert a lot of pressure, but there are also other options nowadays. Nations like China, like Russia, which might somehow manage to trade without the USA. But it always means that when you impose such restrictions, prices go up. Even the USA, if they no longer have free trade with other countries, it also means that prices in the USA will rise, as even Donald Trump says. And that's why tariffs are always a lose-lose situation. And then we had a very important piece of news here, namely, it's now official, the USA has a Bitcoin advocate as the Secretary of Health. Robert Kennedy Jr. was confirmed by the Senate today. According to his own statements, he holds up to $5 million in Bitcoin, and not only that, he says that he holds the majority of his liquid portfolio in Bitcoin. And I keep saying this, if Donald Trump is not bullish on Bitcoin, then at least his entire team is. Bullish on Bitcoin from Elon Musk. Okay, you have to say, they're not all hyper-bullish, but at least they all have Bitcoin. Tulsi Gabbard, Ramaswamy, Vance. Then we have Scott Bessent, Howard Lutnick. List is now so large. There are at least 30 or 40 names by now, all of whom have direct close contact with Donald Trump and all own Bitcoin. Some are massively bullish, some are just a little, let's say, minimally bullish. Some people also have a certain inclination toward shitcoins, but they all have one thing in common. They are open to Bitcoin and they also own Bitcoin. And that means they now also have an interest in pumping up the Bitcoin price. Robert Kennedy Jr. has an interest in pumping up the Bitcoin price. Donald Trump has the interest. Elon Musk potentially has the interest. Vivek Ramaswamy J.D. Vance. Many people here in the Donald Trump team all have the interest in pumping up the Bitcoin price. And that's why it's also so likely that more positive regulations will come through here. Perhaps even the strategic Bitcoin reserve will come. And also in the Southern wealth from here. Bitcoin is included, that would support it. On the other hand, we are currently seeing a very cautious mood. I just saw 1 or 2 tweets on X where people said, hey, the mood is really comparable to a bear market. But just consider this. You really need to see the bigger picture now. Because I also see it in the comments below when people say, wow, when is the Valhalla candle finally coming and blah blah blah. Nothing is happening and so on. But hey, you just have to look at it in the long term. Over a 10-year period, a 15-year period, or even a 2-year period, we already have a Valhalla candle, and it's going massively upwards. That means you really need to set the right time frame again, and we're not doing so badly. So just consider this, we're only a few $1,000s away from the all-time high, and people are starting to panic. So, for me, it's incomprehensible. But there are also a lot of new people in the market. Maybe something is different in this bull market because in the other bull markets, we didn't have such long sideways phases or as many long sideways phases. And then I understand that some people here are losing their patience. But hey, folks, I'll say it again. Just use it as an opportunity to buy more Bitcoin. Go ahead, everyone, 21 Bitcoin. Use the code Bitcoin Hotel, and you can get up to 20% off the fees when buying Bitcoin. Then place your orders here. Buy Bitcoin, of course, this is not a purchase recommendation. But that would be the logical step. Here, instead of complaining, just add more Bitcoin. And many people now assume that the bear market is coming back and that we will start selling off. So the mood is very pessimistic. But as I said, how can one be pessimistic here when even the health minister in the US is now a Bitcoin maximalist? And if they are all massively opening up to Bitcoin, it's a mystery to me, but of course, that's just how it is. I have to accept it. Feel free to write in the comments what your current sentiment is. So, I haven't found it to be good at the moment when I look at the comments from the last 3 or 4 days. What was also interesting here, according to the Fireblocks manager, is that Elon Musk might make X money, crypto ready by the end of this year. So, there is actually Fireblocks HQ now. I don't even know what it is. Wasn't familiar with it before, and the manager apparently says here that he has inside information that X will roll out the crypto payment story. I mean, we've always heard this from time to time. In the past, it was reported that Elon Musk wants to create an everything platform, something like Waypay or so in China, where you can make payments and do various things. And basically, what we currently see in X is just the beginning, and now a payment or payment interface is being implemented. Elon Musk also has experience or a history with various payment ventures that he has undertaken as an entrepreneur. And now the statement is that crypto is coming here as well. And then many people speculated, okay, is the Lightning Network coming here or is Bitcoin coming? But unfortunately, I have to disappoint a bit here. I rather assume that stablecoins will be used here. That's also what I forgot to mention earlier. That means on one hand, we have the bullish things for Bitcoin, but one must honestly say that the whole Donald Trump team is, let's say, open to Bitcoin, but even more open to stablecoins because they simply want to strengthen the US dollar here. This means the number one priority here is the US dollar, and Bitcoin is also just a tool to further strengthen the US dollar. Here, in my opinion, it's not being evaluated whether the USA can be brought up to speed or if it's good or bad for the USA, but rather, in my opinion, it's mainly about whether Bitcoin can further promote the US dollar. If we arrive at the answer yes, then there will be a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Then there might also be a sovereign wealth fund with Bitcoin. If the answer is no, Bitcoin is potentially even an opponent for Bitcoin or is not beneficial for the US dollar, then the tendency will be to decide no. That means everything depends on the US dollar. Donald Trump is not a Bitcoin maximalist. Rather, Donald Trump is a US dollar maximalist. That means he is really focused on the US dollar, and that's something you need to know. And it will very likely be the same with X. Even though I would find it cool, there might not be a Bitcoin payment, but rather, stablecoin payment or some speculate on a Dogecoin payment, which in my opinion would make relatively little sense, but it would fit Elon Musk because he's just a Dogecoin enthusiast. Guys, let me know in the comments below what you think about all these topics. Are you also panicking or are you hyper bullish? Peace out.